I want to start off this morning actually by just doing a bit of a recap. We're 5 weeks into this series. That's a 7-week series. So now we're nearing the end. I realize that some of y'all, you may not have been here for all 4 weeks up to this. So I just want to kind of real quickly bring us all up to speed. So in week 1, we basically talked about the reality is that for some of us, our hesitancy in actually Sabbathing and honoring and observing the Sabbath like we're commanded to do is simply because, let's be honest, it doesn't make sense for our particular circumstances. We'd love to have a day off. We'd love to Sabbath. That'd be great. But for me, where I'm at right now in my life, it just doesn't make sense, whatever. And we looked at a really unfortunate story of a King Saul who, it was like the end of the good era. It was a very short good era in his life, but it was the end of the good era where he starts to go ahead and fall down as a leader. And what's his falling is simply going, I know what God told me to do, but it just doesn't make sense for me to do it. So I'm going to take things into my own hands. So that was kind of where we started, is like maybe don't do like Saul. And then in week 2, we really looked into the idea, okay, let's dig into Sabbath now. And that's where we really dug into the reality that Jesus says Sabbath was made for man. It was made for us. It was made for you. How cool is that, that God made it for you? And we dug into a little bit in that week of how God made it for you, and it's for us in a way to make us separate from a restless world. We're supposed to be keeping the Sabbath holy because we're supposed to then be holy, and the way we keep the Sabbath holy in part helps to make us holy because we live in a world that doesn't really like to rest. It likes to just keep going and going and going, doesn't it? And there's a bit of a God complex behind that where we feel like we have to like be our everything, and if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And there also, ironically, is a bit of a slavery mindset in that too, where it's like, well, I don't have a choice. And we looked in that week of how God says, no, I've given you the Sabbath to help you, one, remember that you're made in my image. I made you, but you're not God, but you're made in my image. And also to remind you that you're not slaves anymore. So that was a really fun week. Week 3, we went on to discover the secret sauce of Sabbath. It's not quite like Chick-fil-A sauce, but it's right up there. With the secret sauce of Sabbath is the idea that like Sabbath was made for man. Yep, I got that, right? Thank God for making Sabbath for me. Speaking of God, it's not just because it was made for you, all about you. So the Sabbath, even though it's made for you, is actually, we found out that week, not all about you or me. It's actually about God. And spending time on a Sabbath with the Lord in a special way is really the secret sauce to what makes a Sabbath really a Sabbath. And then week 4, that was just last week, so those of you who were with us last week, hopefully it's still in the memory, short-term memory right there, is getting a little R&R. And again, I'm not against rest and relaxation, but we said, hey, what if it was rest and recalibration? A sense of, in Sabbath we meet God, and sometimes God goes, let's fix that up a little bit. Let's adjust that a little bit. Let's kind of make this move and make this shift, because what ends up happening is if we keep on going and going and going and going and going and never stop, we can very much, like I said in that one illustration, be driving like 95 down 95. And we're going fast, but we miss the exit. So we're going the wrong place fast. And in Sabbath, God gets to kind of meet us, restore us, give us some rest, but also sometimes be able to speak to us in those moments and go, hey, let's work on this or let's work on that. And again, we kind of discovered last week that it's very hard, and think about your life, isn't this true? It's very hard to be the most loving person that you can be and having all the fruit of the Spirit, that peace and patience and kindness and goodness, when you are hurried and restless, right? Yeah, so that was week 4. Because at the end of the day, like, us being loving people is really important. Because Jesus himself said that, like, hey, if you're going to take all the commandments that are in the Old Testament and you're going to sum them up, it's simply love God and love people. So love is a pretty important part of that. So loving people is a really important part of that. You know what's something that makes me feel loved personally, and I'm not the only person, I'm sure, in this room that this makes them feel loved too, is when I am expected at something. And I can tell that they knew I was coming and planned and did something special for me. Yeah? Like they knew it was, so like I think of like a few times at Airbnb where we've gone and they had like something like a handwritten note for us. Like Madeline and I were going there and there's like a, Jonathan and Madeline, welcome to your stay. And I'm like, wow, the hotels don't do that for you. So it's kind of nice to have like that little Airbnb touch, yeah? Or like you're going to a party or a conference or something like that, any kind of thing, and they specifically planned on you being there. There's a little bit of that personal touch that we knew you were going to be here, so we did this for you. Even if it's a matter of like, I know some of us have dietary restrictions and all that, so it's sometimes nice when like, oh wow, you took that into consideration. And some of us love to do that for other people because it's a way we show love and care and honor, right? Like, think about this. How many of you have ever been in a situation, and by the way, whose water is this? Is this yours? Dang it. Because I don't have a water, so, but anyway, I'm not going to get your germs. It's okay. But yeah, so the other side of it is when you go to a place that they should have known you were coming, and then they just totally drop the ball. Have you ever been in situations like that where you show up and it's almost like you're an inconvenience to them? Like they knew you were coming, but at the same time, you feel like you are, thank you, you are the biggest burden to them ever. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Come on, like you've been there where you're like, and here's the thing, I can leave and come back if you need me to. I'll go circle the block a few minutes until you guys are ready for us to come or something like that. Like we've all been there, and nothing's ready and nothing's special and everything's kind of last minute, everything's frenzied. I would say this is the reality we're kind of driving towards, is that preparation is an important part of appreciation, recognition, and differentiation, meaning it's something special. Like preparation for something makes something special. Sometimes for something to be special, you got to think ahead a little bit about it. You know, it is hard for me to believe that something or someone is important to you if you knew it was coming and it required a little preparation and you didn't prepare for it at all. So, like for instance, Madeline was dropping hints for the longest time about her 30th birthday. It was a big deal. And when she turned 30, if I'd have just been like, it was a Saturday, so it worked out perfectly. If I'd have just been like, oh man, I guess yeah, today's the day. Boy, should we, I don't know, should we do something special? Like, you want to go, we should have a party. If I thought on the 30th, on the day, if I realized at that point, well, today's the day, so let's like throw a party, I should probably go and get a gift. Amazon can't help me out at that point. I don't know how Amazon, same day delivery, where I don't have that kind of luxury. So if I hadn't gotten a gift, if I hadn't like, you know, planned anything for her, if I was just kind of winging it on that day, how special and how important do you think she'd feel? Not very special, not very important, because the idea is like, it really helps to honor somebody if you prepare for something that's special for them. And I know Sabbath isn't a somebody, but today we're talking all about preparation for the Sabbath, because here's the reality that I want us to get today. You honor the Sabbath when you prepare for it. You honor the Sabbath, and that's what we're called to do, right? Like one of the commandments, one of the ways the fourth commandment is written in Exodus, I believe it says to honor the Sabbath, to treat it special. That's what honor is, to treat it special. Well, it's not rocket science today, but you honor the Sabbath when you prepare for it, when you have it, like a sense of it's coming up, and I really I want to honor it, and I really want us to understand and appreciate that way of honoring and preparing for Sabbath today, because in the Jewish tradition, the Sabbath is a celebration event. It's a feast, just so you know. It's not a fasting kind of like, oh, solemn occasion. It's like bring out the good food, get the good spread going on, let's eat really good. So it's a celebration event every week that we get invited to have. So when you think of special events like significant birthdays, graduations, weddings, and etc., isn't it true when you think about those special events that the quality of the occasion and the success of the occasion or event is often determined by the amount of and the excellence of the preparation that went into it? Like, again, a wedding or a graduation. I think of some of our Stafford County, I'm not trying to pick on our school system, but since I'm already in the mood, like the invocation or whatever it was that y'all had, it was not very well prepared for and thought out. And so you have like medical emergencies happening right and left because in August they had an outdoor event and didn't have enough water and didn't think about transportation in light of that. And so just in many moments, the excellence of an event is often determined by the amount of and the level of preparation for it. Yeah? Making sense? Yeah, think of it this way. I think of how we get ourselves to sleep at the end of the night. Now, here's the thing. I know it's probably classic that, you know, they joke around, they say, like, husbands and wives, the one, it's always fated that a person who takes forever to fall asleep will end up married to a person who takes 3 seconds and falls asleep. So go figure, that's what Madeline and I decided to do. She takes like hours to get there, and I'm just like, boom, pretty much. But here's the reality. Even though I go to sleep very quickly, I don't just, and none of us, I hope, go from working, and then like just fall into our bed fully clothed without anything, just like Work. Now, like, if you've done that, which you probably all have done it maybe once or twice or a few times, it was not your healthy life that you were living. It wasn't your best life you were living in that moment. By and large, many of us, when we get ready to do that thing we call, like, how many hours we're going to get of it, sleep, there's a sense of, like, hey, change your clothes. Get out of the work clothes you were wearing all day or something like that, and, like, take the makeup off and brush your teeth, maybe shower. I like to shower before I go to bed. It, like, warms the body and gets me ready. It's my part. We all have a routine, right? You guys each have a routine. You don't just sleep. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, today, as we get ready for Sabbath, this idea of some of us, the problem is we understand, like, there's a routine that we all have in order to get those hours of rest that we'll get every day. But when it comes to a day of rest, some of us were like, man, this feels really weird. And it's like, yeah, because you jumped into it fully clothed. You didn't brush your teeth. You didn't shower. You didn't do anything, like, to get ready metaphorically here. You follow me, the metaphor? To get ready for the rest day. And so let's look at one of the first stories of Sabbath in the Bible to go ahead and understand how they prepared for it. Because this is really our main text today of how we look at how did they prepare for it. The people, just to give us context before we throw it up there, the people have just been rescued out of Egyptian slavery. So 400 years, they were slaves. They couldn't have a choice of taking a break or taking a rest and having a Sabbath. And so they go through the Red Sea, and then they're traveling now from Egypt and through the Red Sea to the Promised Land eventually is where they're hoping to get. But in the meantime, they're just kind of traveling around. God's taking them on a journey. And here's the problem. They ran out of road trip snacks. And they have nothing to eat. I know, like, that's a big no-no. They're out of snacks. And of course, like a bunch of, like, hundreds of thousands of kids, they start grumbling and complaining. Moses, where's the food? What do you think it's going to do? Just, like, fall out of the sky or something, Moses? We're hungry. Well, ironically, it does go ahead and say in Exodus 16, 4-5, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day. So how many days? Every day. It says every day, right? So you're going to go out and grab a portion every day. One more time. Every day. Say it again. Every day. Okay. That I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. Now, here's the fun thing. It said every day, but it's going to get clarifying here in a second what he means by every day, because he's saying there's going to be a test in this. Because on the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. And then jumping down to verse 21, and now in the New Living Translation, it says, after this, the people gathered the food morning by morning, every day, each family according to its need. And as the sun became hot, the flakes of manna that they had not picked up melted and disappeared. Now, on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much as usual. So it was 4 quarts for each person instead of 2, which is twice as much. It's good math for you there. Then all the leaders of the community came and asked Moses for an explanation. And he told them, here's what it is. This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow will be a day of complete rest. Doesn't that sound good? Tomorrow will be a day of complete rest. A holy Sabbath a holy Sabbath day set apart for the Lord. So bake or boil as much as you want today and set aside what is left for tomorrow. So they put some aside until morning, just as Moses had commanded. And in the morning, the leftover food was wholesome and good. Didn't have maggots or a bad smell to it and all that. So Moses said, eat this food today, for today is a Sabbath day dedicated to the Lord. There will be no food on the ground today. You may gather the food for 6 days, but the 7th day is the Sabbath. There will be no food on the ground that day. By the way, can we just, like, real quickly, there's an indication, by the way, that they were like, there's no maggots and it doesn't smell bad. You kind of catch that part? Yeah. The really, I think, hopefully obvious thing that we figure out there is, like, you did have to get food every day of the 6 days. Because if you didn't, probably by the next day, it would have maggots or a bad odor. So they're like, whoa, this is kind of miraculous that for some reason, this stuff that we were saving on this from the 6th day into the 7th day, it didn't have that. And some of the people, though, this is classic Israelites, some of the people went out anyway on the 7th day, but they found no food. So you're going to disobey it, but you're not going to have good luck with it because it's not out there. So the Lord asked Moses, how long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? They must realize that the Sabbath is the Lord's gift to you. Do you see some of the themes coming back now? The Sabbath was made for you. In fact, it says here it's a gift for you. It really is meant to be a gift. That is why he gives you a 2-day supply on the 6th day. So there will be enough for 2 days. On the Sabbath day, you must each stay in your place. Do not go out to pick up food on the seventh day. So the people did not gather any food on the seventh day. I think it's fascinating how God explicitly said that this whole thing was a test. Like he literally says, I'm going to do this thing just so that I can test you. To test to see if you're going to walk in my law or if you're not going to choose to do that. And it's interesting because food prep wasn't the only thing that was forbidden on the Sabbath. It wasn't the only thing that was work related. So you're going to hear other stories or see other stories in the Bible of other things that God said not to do. But this was the only one, while it's forbidden, that it also kind of got regulated by God. Right? God's like, oh, I'm not even going to give you the chance to go ahead and break this one. I mean, you can walk out of your tent to go try and find some, and you can look over highways and byways and all these places, but there's no manna on the seventh day. So it's not only commanded by God, but it's actually they all have to deal with it, and it's regulated and prearranged by God. And because it was a test to see if they would understand the importance of obedience, but also dependence. That we really must be, apparently, in all this thing, dependent upon God. Again, it's miraculous that bread flakes fall from the sky. And it's one of the many miracles in the Bible that we have to believe is true. But it's also then very much like God to be like, oh, I can make it happen 6 days and make it just stop on the seventh day randomly. To teach you not only obedience, but dependence as well. And of course, they went ahead and some of them failed that test. They went out and some of them tried to go ahead and still collect on the seventh. But the ones that got it right were the ones that didn't treat the seventh day like it was normal. Yeah? But now here's the big thing. Are y'all still with me? But those people are also the ones who didn't treat the sixth day like it was normal either. So they were treating the sixth day like it's going to be a little bit more work and a little bit more prep because I need to get ready for the seventh day. And so that's one of the important things that we could miss if we read this. We're like, oh, okay, really quick. If they were going to succeed, in order to honor the Sabbath, had to prepare for it as well. They worked extra on the sixth day to go ahead and collect and prepare and cook on the sixth day so they wouldn't have to do that on the next day. So they would be free from that responsibility. We got to realize that as we enter in and step into a really restful Sabbath, that it isn't going to be like those kids who mysteriously that first day walked into the wardrobe and all of a sudden then found themselves in Narnia. It's not like that. You don't just go ahead and oh wow, here it is. Everything's already this magical world set before me. How cool is that? No, stepping into a real Sabbath takes some intentional work and some intentional thought and some intentional care on our part to go ahead and say, how on earth do I take a day and not work? Right? Right? How do I do this? Think of it again, the metaphor we used last week, and I already referenced it once, of me driving super fast, or you driving super fast, 10 miles over the speed limit in the far left lane, yeah? If all of a sudden, your exit is in 0.1 miles, comes on, yeah, it's gonna be dangerous. You kind of need to go ahead and start preparing for that exit. Hopefully your GPS was telling you a little bit before that, you were also starting to merge over and slow things down a little bit, because if you try to, at 10 over the speed limit in the far left lane, cut over into the right lane and slow down and make the turnaround exit kind of thing, it could be really dangerous. And it probably would be ineffective as well. And like I said a couple weeks ago, remember, Isaiah 58, God tells us that his desire would be for his people to call his day, the Lord's day, which is Sabbath. Remember, it's about him. It's not just about you and me getting out and getting some fresh air, which is part of it. I mean, it could be, but it's about him. He wants it, though, to be our delight. So that whole speeding on 95 and that's not delightful. That's frightful. And some of us, our way of getting into Sabbath is it's freaky. It's kind of crazy. And that's maybe why it's been so difficult for us. We've got to go ahead and create space for rest and be recalibrated by it, right? So we talked about last week. We're getting recalibrated by it. So honestly, for some of us, it's going to take some work for us to get used to resting, which could seem kind of contradictory if you think about it. Wait, it's going to take work for me to rest? But Jonathan, that's the whole thing. I am overworked. I'm already exhausted. I don't like the idea of having to work harder in order to rest, but I'm just going to tell you today that as much as it might seem ironic or contradictory, Hebrews, which we're going to end this series in 2 weeks on, is going to tell us that absolutely you need to sometimes strive in order to get rest. You need to work in order to actually enjoy the rest that God has for you. So these Israelites realized that. On the sixth day, they worked a little bit extra so that the seventh day could be a delight. It could be a day where it's don't even need to worry about making dinner. It's already done. That's nice. So what do you want to talk about? What do you want to do? It's just it's a delight. It's a relaxation day. And I would say actually it's good for us in our way of living to not just take the 6th day and prepare for that 7th day, but for us to kind of keep a pace all 6 days that allows the 7th day to be a delight. So here's what I want to remind us of. Ephesians 5, I think it is, says, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. So what's it look like for you and I to walk wisely in these days we're in these evil days we're in, when it comes to Sabbath? I want us to look at 3 key ways that we can honor the Sabbath by preparing for it. Because I think that if we prepare for these 3 different things, and here's what I would guess, by the way, as you're taking notes, or as you're thinking through this, as you're hearing this and it's sinking in a little bit, my guess would be that my hope would be that you'd really grab a hold of one of these 3 things that is a part of preparing for Sabbath, and just let it be your one thing. Like, I know that we already talked about how you honor the Sabbath by preparing for it. That's the one thing. But like I'm saying, for each of us, maybe don't leave here with 3 things that you feel like are your next action step. Just take one and go, this is the thing. I know which one mine is, by the way. I'll tell you about it in a minute here. But the first thing we have to do to prepare is to prepare to rest well by working well. Now, it may seem obvious, but trust me, it's not. It's not. One of the best ways that we can rest well on the 7th day is if we work well on the other 6. Because listen, there's something that we may miss in the 4th commandment that we read about. We read in Exodus early in the series. I just want us to look at it again. Exodus goes ahead and says, God says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Yeah, to keep it set apart, to keep it holy. So we're remembering it, keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor. 6 days you shall work and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. So part of the command is get your butt up and work. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's really what it says. Like, 6 days you shall labor, you shall work. There's a sense of and again, work in this context isn't just vocationally. It's just saying the things that need to get done, of which even if you retire, there are still things to get done. And the command would be, hey, go ahead and 6 days, go ahead and do all that work, labor. That way on the 7th day, you will rest. Bless you. And even with the manna story, which by the way is just 4 chapters earlier, when we looked at that, if you didn't work well on the 6th day, if you were just like, man, I don't know, I don't feel like getting twice as much food. It takes so long to pick up these little flakes and get a whole quart. I just don't. If you didn't work well on the 6th day, your 7th day wasn't good. It wasn't a delight, because you weren't working well on the 6th day. The 7th day wasn't going to be a good Sabbath. And one of the many reasons I think people struggle to Sabbath is because of how we work the rest of the week. We can't rest well on that one day because of how we are working the rest of the week. In some ways, we're already sunk before we start. Because here's what I mean. The reason some of us don't Sabbath well is we're like, yeah, I'm already worn out and depleted. And you feel it. You feel worn out and depleted. So as you go to your work and you go to do work, you just kind of go into it already tired. And you don't give your best work when you're tired, do you? Do I? No, we don't. We kind of, and here's what ends up happening. We're constantly looking for escapes. We're looking for, I don't know, just a way to get our mind off of it. We end up trying to distract ourselves. We're maybe on social media or just getting into conversations. You start finding yourself just naturally I'm always by the water cooler because I just want to be distracted. I don't want to work. I don't want to be here. Is it Friday yet? By the way, can I just tell y'all that I envy everybody else. When your week is going slow, you're happy or you're upset about it. I would love a slow week. I tell you, Friday comes so fast. Sunday comes even faster because that's what everything, But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, when I hear people go, man, this week's going slow, I'm like, teach me your ways. How did you figure that out? Because my weeks fly by. But anyway, but how can you, when you're consistently worn out and depleted and all that, how can you do good work? So what ends up happening is a lot of us, we don't work well. We're not really productive and accomplishing much because of what we're working on. It doesn't have our focus, our energy, or motivation and all kind of stuff. And if you're not sharp because you haven't Sabbathed, you're therefore not giving your best. And so you're like, I can't really afford to Sabbath because my work is taking longer and I didn't get it all done. It's just taking longer and it's eating up more of my time, but I don't feel like I can afford to Sabbath. Is this making sense? Is this kind of hitting home for anybody? Oh man, I honestly, again, some of us were I don't feel like I deserve it. Because I really didn't, there's a lot of things I didn't get done, and I know I didn't get it done because I was just tired all week long. Now, as much as we've talked about this in the series, and you and I need to know that, and here, so y'all listening, right? Sabbath is not something that God goes, okay, if you've behaved yourself very well this week, I'm going to give you a Sabbath. Like it's a cookie at the end of eating a full dinner or something like that. No, Sabbath is something that God tells us and commands for us all the way, no matter what. But he also does indicate in Scripture here that like if you work well, it will actually help make the Sabbath all the better. You'll enjoy it all the more. It's a compounding thing. The better we work, the more likely we are to go ahead and say, okay, I can Sabbath. The Sabbath breaking that we've done actually dulls us so that we're less effective in our work, which makes us less prone to rest, and it ends up being a cycle in our lives of brokenness that I'm telling you, if that's the case, then if you start to Sabbath and work better and Sabbath better and work better, it starts to get better most likely. So it is one of those things where I'm not saying, hey, like flip a switch, all of a sudden work well. I'm just saying, I'm trying to help us realize that might be one of the reasons why we're not Sabbathing well, is because we need to have the Holy Spirit help us to make the most of the time because the days are evil. It's just a lot of mess in our world, a lot of distraction in our world, a lot of evil in our world. And when we don't Sabbath a full day and instead choose escapes, we're basically all throughout the week, we're choosing these little mini micro like bursts of just kind of Sabbath, but they're not actually a real full 24-hour period of just rest and relaxation. So we're kind of like trying to give ourselves sugar to make it through the week instead of actually good, healthy food. It's nuts. Like it's not going to work. It's again, like I talked about before, our drivenness sometimes then is leading to our lack of productivity. And so if we're going to prepare for the Sabbath, it means doing good work. Because here's the thing too. Isn't it fair that like to notice that most of the Israelites, like the biggest percentage of the Israelites would not be cooks by trade? Right? Like the majority of them were not like chefs or cooks or things like that. And yet the food preparation was one of the things that they were all told not to do. And I think the reason for that is that there's an idea of like not just like your work. We're talking about just tasks that need to get done and things around the house that would need to get done. And so collecting, going out to the grocery store essentially is what they were doing, and then prepping the food, cooking it all up and all that. He's saying don't do that on this day. Take this day, make it special, have it all done. And so that's, for me, by the way, the area that I'm honestly looking to personally grow the most in my Sabbath. Is that in our house, I make the majority of our food. I cook the most of it. And I, on my Sabbaths, almost always am cooking. Like something. Like, because there's 3 meals that I have to have, or else I waste away to nothing. And so I am always cooking at something. And one of the things I'm taking away from, honestly, my own sermon today is that I'm really going to working on making food ahead of time. So that when it comes to my Sabbath, when I get to it, I'm like, just heat it up and it's ready to go. That's one less thing. I don't need to cut up anything or, stir anything. And here's the thing. We'll get to it later. But if I do, it's only because I really want to. And not like I need to, just because like, ooh, it'd be fun to try a new recipe. I got no rush today. Let me go ahead and try that. See, Exodus 29 told us that 6 days you and I shall labor and do all our work. So that means the Sabbath isn't a day to catch up on chores. It means like if that's the case, then that we need to figure out. And again, I'm being really practical today. Is that okay? Yeah. But like that means that then chores that fall on your Sabbath and are I can't believe I didn't get it done. Maybe you have a day that you do them. For me, it was yesterday. All day yesterday, I was working on chores. I didn't get them all done, by the way, and it killed me at night last night to go to bed. Not because today's my Sabbath, because today isn't my Sabbath. Monday's my Sabbath. But like I know that today I have an obligation, for a good chunk of the day and all that. And so like I'm like, oh, I just like to get things done, but if you want to maybe do it like chores during the week, that might be the way to go ahead and get around it. But here's the thing. The Sabbath is not a day for us to work on chores. It's a day to go ahead and say, you know what? I'm not going to ever get it all done anyway, so let me just enjoy this day. So the first thing is we recognize that like preparing for the Sabbath means we got to go ahead and work well if we're going to Sabbath well. The second thing is this. Prepare to not get anything done. And that's a little bit different than the first one. But also I don't mean this like in the way that we talk about it when like somebody tells us they're going to the DMV. Right? Or a mandatory work week meeting. It's like, oh, you got a long like invocation kind of meeting or something like that. Prepare to not get anything done. I don't mean it like that. I mean literally like preparing to go ahead and to not do anything. I want to tell you a real quick story if I can from my youth pastor days. When I was a youth pastor at a church, one of the 2 churches I was a youth pastor at, there was a big event that was coming up that I was responsible for. It was the youth that were leading this big outreach event, and it was the week after my vacation with my family. And so I had to do all the prep, and it was my first year ever doing it. I was the new youth pastor carrying on this legacy of this big outreach they did and all that. And so So I got everything prepped, and then I left on vacation. And I kid you not, my pastor, he was in trouble for this a lot. He emailed me a couple times while I'm on vacation. Because that's the world we live in now, right? Like your vacations are hijacked and things like that. But then he went ahead and he texted me to ask me if I had checked my email. Now here's the fun thing, Shay. In this email, it was just, I know because you're going to be like, this email was just an email letting me know, Jonathan, it's rather concerning to me as calls are coming in about this event that like you're not here to manage them and all, and I really regret essentially letting you go on this vacation. Thanks. Thanks for making sure you texted me so that I could see that email so that I could have that. Because like, what am I going to do on this vacation? Like turn around and go back? Now, fun fact. I had already got somebody to come to the building and manage all those phone calls. I'd asked one of our volunteers, one of our youth leaders, I was like, would you come in and manage these calls and let me know? And I'd gotten everything prepped. He never asked me. He just assumed I hadn't. And so I say that little sob story of my own just to kind of say that like we all know that like getting ready for a vacation sometimes and being on vacation is not always disconnecting from work. But back in the day, let me tell you young people, back in the day when you went away, especially on an international or something like that, they weren't going to get you. Man, like the whole business could like literally like, be liquidated and you could come back and find out because you're out on holiday and you didn't even know. Like it was great. You'd have these vacations where you were really, so now here's the thing. When you were getting ready for a vacation like that, where you couldn't answer work emails, you'd have to do all the work ahead of time and get ready to, when you leave, you're not going to be able to get any work done, right? So that's one of the things that we can do in Sabbath that's going to really help us to honor the Sabbath is kind of going old school and just kind of have a sense of like, you know what? When I prepare for the Sabbath, I'm going to prepare my heart, my mind, my schedule, my task load so that I may not get anything done, and that is okay. Because again, this is going to be a special day for me to be with the Lord and be refreshed. And so I'm not trying to be productive. I'm just trying to be refreshed. I'm trying to spend time with Him. And some of us even struggle to imagine, like, well, how is a day delightful and how can you even feel good if you're not getting anything done? Right? Like some of you, I'm not going to ask you to like raise your hands or anything like that, but some of us in the room will be like, yeah, I don't know if I don't like get something like accomplished, how it could possibly be a good day. But maybe you need a Sabbath then to meet with the Lord and talk to Him about that and just reckon with the idea that you're a human being, not a human doing and things like that. But again, hyper practical today. But it's only because like the scripture gave us some hyper practical things of like they collected twice as much on the sixth day. So for you, if you're not going to get anything done, maybe you like even go to the extent of picking out the clothes you're going to wear the next day. So you don't have to decide what you're going to wear, and meal prepping like I already mentioned, and getting everything you need done in advance, or kind of letting people know. Here's one of the things I let people know that will usually be in contact with me. I'm not going to respond, bless you. I'm not going to respond on Monday to you probably. And it's not because I don't love you, I don't care. It's just like I don't need to get work done that day to enjoy it. In fact, I'll enjoy my Sabbath a lot more if I just kind of like don't get anything done. And that's the thing. If we are mentally consumed by, that's what's going to be hard for some of us. If we're mentally consumed by our work, then it's already kind of messing up our Sabbath. So it really gets to be a bit of a sacrifice of saying, God, I'm choosing to give this over to you, to appreciate and be grateful for all that you've already let me do. Like, I think that's one of the things is we're not like, if we can't stop, we're probably not grateful for what already God's allowed us to do. We're just kind of trucking along and going on. And the Sabbath invites us to go ahead and say, hey, what if you just celebrated? And then what if you went ahead and filled your day with a bunch of not need to do's, but get to do's? That's what by the way, that's my like go-to when I come up with, and this is one of the practical questions people ask me a lot when they're looking to be discipled about what does a Sabbath look like. I'll say this, one, I don't think it needs to be a certain day. We've had people in our history at Alive that have been like, I think of one person in particular, I won't mention any names obviously or anything like that, hyper-focused on this. And it had gotten to a point where it was legalistic, where it had to be, and I think in the New Testament you'll even see the Romans, I think 14, where it talks about arguments over which day you Sabbath and things like that. It's not important. Here's what is important. Are you willing to 24-hour period every week, every 7 days, just say, it's not about what I need to do, what I ought to do and all kind of stuff. It's what do I get to do? And that makes it a lot of fun to go ahead and just decide, here's the things that I'm going to go ahead and do. And here's the thing. This idea of not getting work done is something that you and I honestly should kind of be used to, but we're not, because you do it every day. There's every day, I already mentioned it, but there's every day a point in your day where eventually you stop getting work done because you have to sleep for however many hours. And the best rest is not the one that comes with like that like butterfly floating into your room and then all the flutter of like side effects that come with that medication that they're promoting with that butterfly and all that kind of stuff. The best rest is actually, let me tell you, the kind of rest that we see in Psalm 121, where remember that God will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The best rest is when you realize that when you're sleeping, God's not. That God is not resting. And so as we take this into Sabbath, the best Sabbath is the day where you go, I don't need to get work done because even when I'm not working, God's still at work. The reality of your life is that you will probably never get all the to-do list things done. You'll never accomplish all that you could possibly accomplish. And I certainly don't want to encourage you to not care and not like be worried about wasting your life away, because we need to make the most of the time. We already read. But you're not God. So it's really good in Sabbath to be reminded of that and go, you know what? I don't need to get work done because he's still going to get stuff done. Who knows what miracles he's already working out in advance for me when I'm not working. I'll take that. And if you find that Sabbath is still really hard to do for this reason, yeah? Like for some of us, it's still really hard to Sabbath because I hate not getting anything done. Like, I know some of y'all's personalities. I am responsible for things. People depend on me, which again, King Saul, week 1. I am responsible for things. People depend on me. It was definitely King Saul's kind of vantage point from there too. But you know, I just can't do that. Well, as you Sabbath, reflect on that. I'm honestly inviting you to go ahead and have a holy moment and go ahead and say the next time you Sabbath, God, can we talk about what I'm concerned about here? What are you afraid about? What is it that you maybe have overinflated your ability to control in your life that you're not trusting God to control in your life? I know that might seem a little bit like, oh, you're getting into my, I'm not trying to be like nasty. I'm just saying that like oftentimes it comes from somewhat of a good place, but the enemy will absolutely gladly take advantage of that. He'll absolutely go ahead and say, yes, you are absolutely responsible for this. And we overinflate all that we are meant to be in control of, and then we get frustrated because we find out every so often that we're not God, and it kind of is frustrating. And so God's kind of going, hey, you need to reflect. And you might even find that, like, you know what? As you're reflecting on things, you might have too many things that you're responsible for. That might be one of the things. I can't control all the things going on in my life. Well, maybe you have too much going on in your life. And as you're meeting and reflecting in that moment, maybe it's a matter of God kind of going, hey, you know, you need to recalibrate. Does your work need you that much? Do you honestly, here's another thing. Do you need to have as many hours dedicated to working for somebody, or could you maybe cut some of your expenses so that you don't need to work so much? I think some of us, we just get into a cycle. We don't stop to reflect and really look and go, where is my life maybe needing to be recalibrated a little bit? What are the good things for me to say yes to? And maybe what are some of the good things for me to say no to? Because preparation for the Sabbath and the recalibration of Sabbath are connected. That's what I'm trying to get us to see in this moment right now. Is that as you prepare for the Sabbath, if you're like, this is so hard to prepare for, sometimes God's going, because you have so much going on. Which leads me to my last thing, actually, the third and final thing. Prepare to disappoint some people, including yourself. So, I've got, yeah, what?
Sound good there.
That's sweet, Kevin. I want to carry a lot of things in my life, and so I want to build a lot. That's what this is about. I want to build a lot. I'm a pastor, and I really want to be able to build things, and maybe you do too. And you want to build some important things, and then you want to have fun. I like to go out and maybe go. I don't know. You can go to a football game, but for me, it's much more about like the idea of like camping and things like that. I like camping. Anybody else? Yeah, so I want to go camping, be able to have some fun out in the outdoors and all that. In fact, recreation, I like to go kayaking. And you might not want to sit there. And kayaking is one of my fun things that I enjoy doing. You're going to stay sitting there, huh? Yeah, you can choose that. And then, unfortunately, you got other responsibilities you don't love, like the cat that you're cat-sitting for the last, what is it, like 7 months now, it feels like, cat-sitting and all kind of stuff. And you got to be responsible for that. And And then I want to travel. I want to see the world. I'm young, and like we don't have kids right now, so it's a chance for us to go travel and see a lot of things and be able to do a lot of things, make a lot of memories and all that. And then I got like chores and things like that around the house I need to do. I need to make sure that at the end of the day, my house isn't falling apart. So I got to keep the kitchen, food and things like that. And then I got to be healthy and drink plenty of water, gallon a day, right? That's what they say. Like, be healthy and all that. And so what ends up happening, thank you, John, that was really nice of you, is you start carrying around all these things, and all these things you're responsible to do, and you start bumping into things. Yeah, you start like, and then what ends up happening is like, all of a sudden God's like, okay, now Sabbath. You gotta put this stuff down. Yep, it's time to rest. It's time to not be like carrying all this stuff. And it becomes a real mess. Because in all of our picking up of many things and all of that stuff, we got to a point where it was unmanageable. It was going to do that. There was constantly this add more kind of mindset in our life where it was just like, I can take on more. And some of us have been living that way where we keep on adding more, and there's not this evaluation, this reflection of God going, hey, you're adding so much. You're not managing it well, because God wants us to manage our lives well. He wants to speak into that. He wants to be a part of that. And in doing that, when it comes to preparing for the Sabbath, there should be a plan for, can I put these things down? Now, again, if we're clear, if you are a parent of a child, you got to take care of that kid on that day. You can't just be like, well, sorry, Lucille, it's my Sabbath, so best of luck, You've got to go ahead and be able to take care of that. But the problem is that many of us, we're afraid of disappointing ourselves, that our lives won't be full, or we're afraid of disappointing somebody else, maybe a boss, or friends, or something like that. And so we carry all these things, and at the end of the day, are we all with me right now? Yeah. Because some of y'all are going to be like, oh my, you are so afraid to Sabbath because you don't know who you're going to disappoint by putting something down. And it feels like that's why, I feel like if I'm going to take a day and just rest, I'm going to disappoint somebody. This is why parents go ahead and get their kids involved in way too many things. Because it's like, well, I can't let them not have the opportunities that the kids next door are doing. Got to keep up with the Joneses, things like that, Or like, oh man, they need my help at work to put in a few extra hours, but also the church is asking me to volunteer, and then also, I got to go ahead and do this for family, because if I don't do that, I'm going to hear about it in Thanksgiving. They're not going to let that one slide, and all of a sudden we have all these things that we have to do, and they naturally, eventually, if we're going to take a break, have to come crashing down. And the reality here is that if you had an 8-day week somehow, you would still fill it up. You would. It's Parkinson's law. It was coined in 1958, Parkinson's law. The idea is, as much as the supply is, we will fill that up. So if you have 8 days all of a sudden given to you, like you prayed the right prayer, and all of a sudden you got 8 days every week, you will still fill it up, and you will still find it not enough. Because there's just going to always be more things to carry. I can do a bit more. I can stuff a bit more. And you can only do so much until you say enough. And that's what Sabbath invites us to go ahead and do as a weekly rhythm, just saying enough. Enough. I can't carry all this and then somehow let it all down on one day. So maybe I just need to carry less. Maybe in this season, and that's the thing too, maybe it's just in this season, I need to be carrying less because this is too hard on me to go ahead and disappoint my boss or disappoint my friends or family. I need to create healthier boundaries and healthier standards for living where I'm willing to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to be prepared for Sabbath. I'm going to be prepared for, I might disappoint some people, but I don't want to disappoint the one who literally has purchased my life and given me hope and a joy and a freedom in him. I don't want to disappoint him. So yeah, people might be like, come on now, why can't you just, why aren't you guys doing, or why aren't you just, I can deal with that. Because at the end of the day, there has to come a point where I say, enough. Because here's the reality. If I'm never off, I'm never going to be as good being on. You get what I'm saying? If I'm never off, if I'm constantly available, I'm not as good when I'm available. And so even as a pastor, but that's not just because of me, it's the case for every single one of you. If you're always available, if your phone's always lit up, I encouraged you already, but I'll say it again, like on your Sabbath, it might be good to let the phone just find a different room to hang in or something like that. Give it some alone time. It needs some away time too from you. Give yourself some sense of like, I am not going to be easily accessible, immediately accessible to anything and everything. Because Jesus is the one we're trying to follow, right? Let's talk about Jesus. He did a lot of public and private ministry. His days were full, not busy, but full. He was occupied with what the Father had him doing, and he was regularly going ahead and doing ministry assignment after ministry assignment after ministry assignment. He's doing things, but at the end of the day, he would try and he would sneak away as best he could. Why? To just rest, to just spend some time with the Father. And so for you, do you really need to work more hours? I mean, do you really need to tie up more loose ends, complete more tasks, aim for perfection, get it to be just perfect? It's not quite there yet. You can get it a little bit better and all that kind of stuff, all so that you can be finally satisfied in who you are? Or is it possible that maybe the approval of the Father could be enough? Spoken from a true perfectionist, workaholic, naturally inclined to go ahead and drive myself into the ground. But at the end of the day, you know what? It's really refreshing to remember what Galatians 1:10 says. That, am I seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? Because if I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. But since I am a servant of Christ, that's who I serve. That's who I'm trying to please. And he already says that, you know what? It is not my actions and my ability to perform and my ability to get the job perfect that he's pleased in. He's pleased in having a relationship with me. He wants me to come and surrender to his yoke. Follow him. Learn from him. Delight in him. This is what Jesus invites us to. And so he says his yoke is easy and his burden's light. So what if we went ahead and said, you know what? That means that sometimes I might not please man. Including myself, like I did say that, and some of you are like, yeah, that's going to be hard for some of you. You're going to disappoint yourself, because you're going to get to a Sabbath and you're like, I am disappointed I didn't get as much done. Okay, that's fair. Maybe it's unfair. Maybe you have like really unrealistic expectations, and it helps to drive you, but also drivenness can kill you. So, but either way, it's cool knowing that God approves of you, that God's pleased. That if you in that quiet moment, maybe God will kind of go ahead and say sometimes, like, hey, you did get distracted a lot this week. You didn't really work well. There's no less love for you. There's no less grace. But in that moment, he can speak to that. But at the end of the day, it's so amazing in our rhythm of rest to be reminded that we are not searching and seeking after the approval of everyone else in our lives. Because I can tell you this, and that's why I loved having it really messy like this, is that, John, you got to go ahead and load up my arms. But in real life, there are many people who are trying to throw more things on. We're throwing things on our own plate, and other people are trying to throw them on. And it is good for us to sometimes be, in a very godly way, able to say our best yes and our best no by choosing who am I trying to please? What does this season look like? What does God call me to do? And Sabbath invites us to a rhythm of going, if I got to put a lot of this down on the seventh day, I probably can't carry as much on the other six. And that's okay, because you know what? I'm going to do it better. By carrying less, I'm going to do it better. So, ending here real practically. Sometimes I actually write a list of what I'm going to do on a Sabbath, which is funny. You're like, you write a to-do list on your Sabbath? Did you hear your own sermon? No, it's not a to-do list. It's a I get to do a list. And I kind of, for me, it allows me to have a day that really feels intentionally reflective, intentionally restorative. Now, here's the thing. At the end of the day, and there's been plenty of these recently even, where I get to the end of my Sabbath and like I didn't get everything done on my list. But it's no sweat off my back, because I wasn't trying to get it all done. I was just trying to give myself some ideas for some cool stuff to do. I spent some good time with the Lord that morning, a little bit extra, a little bit more slowed down. And I really sat in that moment, enjoyed that. And if I was like out on a hike or something like that, it was probably a little bit more reflective of a hike, because it was a lot more of just like, man, God, this is really beautiful. This fall weather and these leaves and just this smell of earth. I love fall, this smell of earth in the fall. It's just, yeah, it's just, And I think God enjoys us enjoying his creation. So I get to have this slow pace. And then you may be like, I don't want to write a list. Or maybe I even shouldn't write a list because there's no way I could possibly write a list and not feel like I have to get it done. So maybe that's the thing for you, is maybe you don't do that. But here's what I will say this. As you look at your Sabbath, you ought to plan for it. It really is that preparation helps honor the Sabbath. So what day is it going to be? What day of the week, this next week, is going to be it? Write it on the calendar. Just put like Sabbath and block it off. Make yourself unavailable. Maybe put your phone on Do Not Disturb. What's it going to look like? And this is where we end today. I was talking with Colton because we, as a worship leader, he likes to know where we're going so he can really craft worship sets and things like that. And I said, this one's going to be really weird because there's no sense of like emotional, like, hey, let's reflect on what God speaks. Here's what it is. It's hyper practical today. I want to actually, in a second here, transition to giving us a few minutes to end today with just you in this room, no place to go, just taking a moment just to like think about what would it look like for me to be more intentional about how I plan for a Sabbath. Because again, I've been doing this pastor thing for a while now. I realize if I say, hey, all right, so we've heard a lot of good things, hopefully, go out from here and just make sure you plan the next Sabbath. If you don't get any kind of time to practice, you're not going to do it. And so this gets to be our practice time where we go, okay, well, what would it look like to intentionally Sabbath? And as we end today, I just want to say, like, the cool thing about it is that that salvation purchases for us the thing that makes Sabbath truly most enjoyable. It is that sense that I am not earning my salvation by what I do. Not in God's eyes, which are the eyes that matter most, or in other people's eyes, which matter least. If you are saved, it is by grace through faith. And that's the most important thing. Because you can't honestly get real rest outside of that saving grace. Because at the end of the day, if you take a day off, your soul's still not at peace. But when you are in relationship with Jesus, you've been forgiven of your sins, you've met with him, and you've got that taken care of, and you're following him. He's the Lord of your life. When you do that, all of a sudden, then it gets to go ahead and create this new way of looking at life and doing life. And in spiritual circles, sometimes it all feels so hyper ethereal that it's always out there, that we sometimes miss the fact that God is very practical as well. So sometimes we work in the reality that there are things at work that we cannot see and that we cannot touch, that we cannot apprehend or do anything about. There are spiritual realities in your life that you just can't like put a finger on. Yeah? Like, why am I not at peace right now? Well, there's maybe spiritual realities at play, but at the same time, taking our physical lives into account, sometimes there really is something very practical, like God going to the Israelites, hey, 7th day, there ain't going to be any manna out there. None. So make sure on the 6th day, you grab a ton extra so that you guys got plenty of food, because I want you guys to eat some good food, have a good time, sit back, relax, don't even worry about cooking, it'll already be done. So for us now, thousands of years later, what would it look like for God to meet with us and say, hey, don't run into Sabbath like you just ran from work right into your bed. Don't try and switch from the left lane, going 95 on 95, into the right lane. What does it look like for you and I to prepare to Sabbath? So I want you to, if you want to, again, we don't do this normally, so I'm kind of like trying to figure out how we do it exactly. But I want you to take 2 minutes here. I'm going to play some music just to give us some background music and all kind of stuff. And I want you to take some notes if you can. But if nothing else, I just want you to sit there and just think about what is your rhythm for going into Sabbath, and what is maybe God trying to, from today, take and grow you in when it comes to that.